Um, this is thank you for listening to Movies with Love. This is, I believe it's called One Battle After Another. I believe is the actual title. But yeah, I just saw that tonight. I just saw Strangers, Chapter 2, a few scenes from The Long Walk, a few scenes from him, and then I jumped to the next movie theater and watched the whole movie of um, One Battle After Another. And boy, was it exhausting. It's almost 3 in the morning. Anyway, yeah, so I'm pretty tired. Amazing movie. I'm going to give this like a 4.5 out of 5. I'm going to make this a quick review. Amazing movie, great movie. It reminded me of why I fell in love with movies. It reminded me of why I love movies, and it just re sparked my interest. At the very beginning of the movie, I wasn't sure how to feel about it. There was a little bit too much like sexual themes. There's just too much like sex stuff, and it just felt a little unnecessary. And it was like, why is all this sex stuff in here? So the beginning was very off-putting for me. But then, as I continued to watch it, Leonardo DiCaprio's character was amazing. Every character was amazing. I loved Leonardo DiCaprio. His character himself, like, redefined the genre of the entire movie. He was great. It was great. It was very realistic. I will say this movie was very triggering. And I think the director knew that. There was a portion in the middle of the movie where there's a lot going on. And as a lot was going on, this musical score was playing. And it was playing for a good maybe like 10 minutes. There's probably like a whole 10-minute sequence of just a lot, maybe even longer, of a lot of things happening. And they were playing this piano song. They were playing this song throughout the whole 10 minutes, nonstop. I don't know if it was looped, or I don't know how. I don't know. There's no soundtrack released right now at the moment. So I don't know, but it was just a long musical score. And it was lightening up the mood. So there were a lot of scenes in this movie where the music was used to lighten the load, or lighten the energy, or lighten the depth of the movie. But if those music scores weren't there, then the movie would be very dark, and it would be very disturbing at times. So I did appreciate that the director was aware of that, and the director did use a lot of the score, or maybe even the composer did that, and used a lot of the scores to ease the tension of the movie, because there were a lot of scenes that were very tense and were made to be tense, and there were many scenes that were tense and disturbing, but the score made the scene feel like, hey, we're gonna ease it up a little bit, even though this is a rough scene to watch. We're gonna kind of ease it up a little bit, so you know what's going on, you feel what's going on, but the score can really kind of give you an easy sense to where you can digest these scenes properly. I don't mean that as in, no, they're not watering down the scenes. They're just making it more like digestible, more better seasoning to it. So I really did appreciate that. Love Leonardo DiCaprio's character. This movie felt very, very real. There were times when characters were talking, when certain pieces of dialogue were being used, the way the characters would interact with each other felt very, very realistic. I forgot that I was watching a movie at certain points because of how amazing the dialogue was, how amazing these characters were talking to each other. Just the interactions, it was just like, wow. So I really, really appreciate the realism of this movie, the dark tones. The director of this movie, or the person who did the scouting locations, just phenomenal. It was phenomenal. A lot of the neighborhoods, a lot of the exterior shots, a lot of the street blocks, a lot of the exteriors, the bl- the architecture that was used in the cities. It was like wow, like it was just like it was just amazing where they got their filming locations from. And I don't know if it felt like home. It felt like history. It felt like this movie broke the veil of time. And I don't know if the director did that on purpose. I feel like it, but there were elements put in the like aesthetic and the energy of this movie to where the movie felt like it was multiple um not cultures, generations being mixed together and blended in such a way. Like there was this, like toward the end of the movie, they're driving in the desert and there's like a Charger and there's a Challenger, I believe. There's a Charger, and I think the other car was a Mustang. It was a Mustang. So there was a Charger and there was a Mustang, and the third vehicle was like I want to say this car was like from the 90s or something, but it was like so modified and decked out that it looked modern, like a street racing car. But if you look at the body type, the base body type looked like a 90s car. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was. I can't remember the logo right now, but it was like things like that. A lot of the vehicles that were used were like older vehicles, and it was like, where did they find that car from? Like, so just the aesthetic of this movie was amazing. The soundtrack of this movie was just like, wow. I love the sound. It 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 was just great. The acting was great. The characters were all great. This movie was long, but it was worth it. It was worth it. I was worried about this movie. I looked at how long it was, and I was like, do I really want to sit here for that long to watch it? Yes, you do. You do want to sit down and watch it. This movie felt like its own universe. The way that the characters were built up, the way that the villains were built up, the way that all the factions, the creeds, all the factions and the character, it was just amazing how it was all built into this world. After you get through the beginning part, you get sucked into this world toward the beginning, and once you're sucked into the world, you're like on a roller coaster ride. And this movie was not afraid to dissect itself and break itself apart. Now I know that there was a video game called The Last of Us, and there was a video game called The Last of Us Part 2, and a lot of people did not like The Last of Us Part 2. Well, this way that the story was made is that the story was created and gave its own identity, but then the second part destroyed what we thought the story was about and dissected itself in such a way that everyone felt betrayed by The Last of Us game because of how it was just dissecting itself and breaking itself apart and just really like getting into the deep core of what the story is actually about. Now when I watched this movie, the same thing. It was like in one movie, though, one big movie, where it's one thing, but then the movie takes such big risks and dissects itself and has so many twists and it breaks itself apart. And the way that this movie builds itself up and then destroys itself, and then you go deeper and deeper and deeper into it was just great. It was amazing. It was great. And I think anyway, this isn't the Last of Us review, but those forms of storytelling, I think having the story told in a sequel versus having that story told in one very long um installment, I think makes a big difference. This movie, it was great. The way the characters interacted, the way the characters talked. They weren't afraid to go places. The humor was amazing in this movie because Rarely did people laugh in my theater. I think everyone was hooked. Everyone, it was just like silence, dead silence. But I think it was silence because everyone was like so like caught off guard by how much this movie evolved into itself, how much this movie just evolved and changed, and it was like wow. But yeah, artistically this movie was great. This movie wasn't afraid to go places. Like I said, the humor, even if you watch the movie and you don't laugh at it, you don't laugh at the humor, it's still very, very enjoyable. So you know, that's always good to know when you watch a story and you don't laugh. It's like, oh, I'm ruined. It's ruined now because I'm not laughing. But no, this movie, even if you don't laugh at certain parts, certain scenes, it's still very enjoyable. Like I said, all the actors were great. Um, how they treated the villain was great. The way that the military was in this movie was very scary, very triggering. This movie actually did scare me at times because of just the entity of what was behind it, of just what it was portraying, and how stuff like that can actually happen or does happen in everyday life. This movie did show the shadow side of life of our country, and just the shadow side of what happens around us every single day that we're blind to. And I, you know, so I think that's another reason why this movie hits so hard, so deeply, is because it's real. It was the scenes were real. What the characters were saying was real. It's the way that the vehicles were being driven, the way certain things were being handled when they were in Mexico, I believe, and this guy was introducing his family. Yeah, it was like whoa, what? It's just wow. This was a great movie, amazing movie. I actually want to see it again because of just how good it was. Thank you for listening to this review, and I hope you guys go and see this movie. A day after uh one battle after another. Thank you for listening to Movies with Love. You guys have a great night.